Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. Toxic recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. Toxic recovery, yeah. Yeah. I'm sick of abusive, narcissistic relationships. Sick of emotional trips. Sick of the lies that roll off your lips. Play me like some type of script. Gaslight me to keep me in grips. Time to cut ties and quit with the snip. Ready to get on the path of toxic recovery. Trauma recovery, yeah. Toxic recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. Toxic recovery, yeah. You said it was love and all of the above, but you wanna suffer, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. Toxic recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery, yeah. You said it was love and all of the above, but you wanna suffer. Trauma recovery, yeah. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Trauma recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Toxic recovery. Yeah.
Disclaimer. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. And I often refer to toxic narcissists and general abusers as delusional, crazy, and mentally unstable. A, because if anyone should be described as this, it's these types. And B, because when we're in these toxic, narcissistic, or generally abusive dynamics, we often give their behaviour far too much respect, which keeps us in the cycle for longer. It is my hope that my mocking of their behaviour encourages you to take that respect away. Now, if you've been diagnosed with a general mental health condition, please know that at no point am I mocking or talking about you. I consider that to be a separate issue that I take very seriously. And with that being said, let's get into it. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Blake Fielder's latest interview on the We Need to Talk podcast. Now, after watching this, I'm going to tell you straight up, as soon as I saw this, I was like, I watched it a few times now because I had to comb through it, right? As soon as I saw it the first time, my first instincts was, this guy is full of crap, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what it was. But I'm going to give him, I'm going to give him a fair shout. I'm going to talk you through the process now, because it's what we're going to talk about today is narrative flip or genuine personal share. This is what we're going to debate at this point in time. My first instinct says narrative flip. Okay. And this is where the toxic, narcissistic, or generally abusive person flips a narrative into something else later down the line. It was one thing at one point, but now it's another thing. Now, you can argue with me in the comments. Let me know your points of view. Please do. I am going to, as always, share mine. Okay. So let's get into it, because there was a lot. First of all, there was a lot not said here. And when I kept on digging, I found evidence to support what my instincts were actually telling me when I was watching it, because I was just like, yeah, but there were a lot of contradictions. My first question about this entire thing is why? Why are you here, Blake? Why at all? Is there a new movie out about her that you want to set this record straight about? No? Okay. Is there some kind of biography that's been released about her life that you want to know? Then why are you here? Because she has passed, like, almost, was it 15 years ago? 11, 15 years ago now? 2011 it was, right? And you're still talking about your relationship with her now as though you are relevant. And what that for me is the first question that I have. I'm like, why are you've had children since Amy. Why are you in an interview talking about Amy and how you want to set the record straight at all? Nobody asked. Nobody literally cares about this guy. Like, this is my thing. I'm just like, but why though? Okay, so you feel bad. You feel bad, but you've been accused of this, that, and the other all of these years. But it's over now. You can get on with your life. And there's one thing that he says in the interview where he's like, I can't live in the comment section. I'm like, dude, you're not famous. What do you mean you can't live in the comment section? There's no comment section for you. You can just remove your Instagram. No one cares. Right? Her fame was what made you relevant. That was it. Her keeping you relevant is what made you relevant. So even comments like that in the interview made me like, dude, nobody asked you. And now, again, of course, the feedback from the general public on TikTok and everything's like, oh my gosh, I saw a different side to this guy and I can see that he's a genuine. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let's break this down. First, we're going to talk about the contradictions here. Right, because he talks about how, he never asked, and we'll get to that too. But anyway, financials. A lot of the money that she spent was spent on the dope. Okay? So I'm like, what is the difference between this guy? And we'll get to the whole, it wasn't his fault about the death and everything as well. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. But here's my thoughts on it. what is the difference? Because, financial abuse is when, the person, the toxic, the narcissist, whatever, puts you in financial crisis or spends your money for you, right? Or restricts money from you. Now, in his case, because he doesn't have the money to restrict, he would be the one spending your money for you. So what is the difference between him spending her money for him, giving her the rugs, and then having a situation where she's spending money on both of them and keeping them both in the habit, and a person giving someone rugs and then making them go out onto the streets to work the money in order to support their habit? I mean, the only difference in this situation is that he didn't have to make her do anything that she wasn't already doing to make the money. That's basically it. Right? So now I'm like, is he a lover or a grifter? Because I'm thinking you're a grifter. Because, okay, he says he was never addicted. He was never addicted when they got together, and the media painted him out as this addicted person. You smoked the H. He says 6 times in 6 months or something like that before he offered it or introduced it to Amy, right? Who had never taken any hard drugs at that point. Right? Right. And he says that he never forced her to do it. Would you think I forced her to do it? There are many ways in which to influence someone into doing something. One of the ways is just to have it around them, normalizing them to the situation at hand. That's a way of influencing someone to do something, right? She wasn't about any of the hard stuff. So you being around constantly, taking that stuff, and then at one point in the interview, he said that he offered it to her, but she had agency. And I'm like, why would you offer it to her? Why? And he goes on to talk about how they were naive. No, she was naive. She was naive. You said earlier in that interview that your favorite movie was Trainspotting. So you knew very well how devastating this could get. I mean, it's a movie, obviously, but, you've been around the block. You've been around the block with this stuff, right? You've taken it with friends. Trainspotting's your favorite movie. You weren't naive to the plot. Let's stop playing these games, all right? So you knew when you offered it to her how left that could go. Okay? He says that she was in control. She was always in control of finances and stuff like that, right? And I think to myself, okay, so she was always in control. Okay. So why this then? Let's play this part of the clip this part of the clip in the interview that he gave.
I'm not a religious person, but I used to pray every night. I'd say, please let Amy stay alive until I get out. Because I had this massive fear, like an absolute control fear something's going to happen to her if I'm not about. Something's going to happen to her when I'm in here and I'm not able to do anything or help or even be there. I just always like, please keep Amy alive until I get out.
If Amy was always in control, like he keeps saying in this interview, she had agency, she was always in control, she knew what was what, she basically had the reins in the situation. Why would you be in so much fear about her doing something when you're not around? Late in another part of the interview, he then contradicts that by saying that, I was always the one that was saying how much to get. So you were in control of the accumulation of these rugs and how much was being spent at any one time. You were the dictator of that, which would explain why when you went to jail, you were worried about her doing something and it all going left. That would explain it. with his current narrative, where she was in control, she knew what to what, she was running the show, that your comment doesn't make sense, sir. It does not make sense. And then also his whole, it was an intense love, it was a deep love, it was codependency, and it was trauma bonded. I'm not understanding. Now, in the documentary, which of course is a film and not documentary, it was a film thing. So we can't put too much stock into that, really. So I'm not even going to mention it because we can't put too much stock into that. So let's just bypass that. The point is, he's spinning the narrative of them being endless love and all of this stuff, but that was not love. Like, maybe in his mind that was love, but as the healed, more evolved version of himself that apparently went through healing and therapy, he should not be spinning that as love. And the host co-signing that as love when you're supposed to be a relationship expert also makes me want to give that whole situation the side eye. Like, why are you co-signing their situation as love? It's highly problematic to me. Now, this guy, the host, I can't remember his name. You know me and names. What is his name? I can't remember. I'm not even going to try. The point is, the black guy that was on Cheaters. I've been giving him the side eye since Cheaters, because Cheaters was a reality TV show. Cheaters Unfinished Business. There were a lot of people on there that were toxic, highly toxic, who were just getting away with spinning a narrative with this guy, and he was just supporting it and just not pushing back on it whatsoever. I thought it was problematic then. Now he's got his own podcast. I'm like, oh my freaking God. Like, seriously, what's happening? Now, I thought that he was a therapist, but actually he was presented on the show as a relationship expert. And here he is presenting as a relationship expert. But either way, I have a between two. I don't believe that this was a healthy, functioning love situation. I believe this was a codependent situation. I believe that he saw his mark and he used that mark for what he needed to use that mark for. That's what I believe personally, right? And now some people want to spin it as the greatest love ever told. I am not on board. Just the way that toxic dynamics work in general, which there's no debate that this was a toxic relationship, right? There's no debate on that, right? But just in the way that these situations work, there is no there's no love, because the person that you're loving doesn't actually exist in the equation, right? So even if you believe as a target that you love that person, the person that you love doesn't exist. Okay, it's a figment of your imagination. It's a cocktail of the love bombing and the promises and the future faking, but the person in front of you is not that person. So even in that, you don't love that person. But there are other kind of dysfunctional patterns, like the codependency, meaning that you're proving. I feel like she was proving from the offset, because remember, he was in another relationship and he left her to be in that other relationship, hence the album Back to Black. That was what that whole album was about, him and her basically trying to prove to him how much she loved him. That was the symbol. That was her getting into outsourcing and codependency and proving mode in order to get this guy, in order to get this guy's attention, to be like, oh, I'm just simple Amy. I mean, I'm sure she's like, I say I'm sure she's like that anyway. I don't know her. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But she definitely hyped it up for this guy so that he would feel more comfortable being with someone of such, stature, I believe, right? That's my interpretation of the situation, which is not a healthy start to begin with. And when he spoke about leaving her, then it was all about her being an alcoholic, so to speak, right? That was his problem with the whole situation, and her being just a drunk. Well, I say just a drunk, but apparently she says that she's a horrible drunk. That could well be true, right? If she said it, I agree with you. It's not unheard of, it's not uncommon, right? So he left her for that. However, you were smoking the H. So apples and oranges at this point in time, isn't it? Right? So there's that. And I wanted to bring up the statistic now because he thinks that and there are a lot of people saying, sorry, I've had another thought in between. There are a lot of people saying that, it wasn't his fault, he introduced her to it and that, he's taking full responsibility, but he's not, because what he does is he says that he introduced it to it and he takes responsibility for that. But then at the same time, she's her own person and she had agency over her own self and she makes choices and no one can tell Amy what to do. However, he was telling her what to do the entire time until he got locked. But we won't talk about that. Do you see what I mean? It's like a cocktail of contradictions here, right? So I'm just like, yeah, I do believe that you are to blame in that situation. The most influential person in your life is the person that you partner with. Okay? 50% of women are introduced to dope by their boyfriends. That's the stats. Okay? So in that, men are essentially the gateway. They talk about gateway rugs? Men are essentially another gateway. All right. Having a relationship is another gate. So, ladies, let's be careful about who we're selecting and what they're into, because that will eventually influence you in some way if you don't break away from it. Now, in reverse, 10% of men are introduced by women. So that's a lot less. Okay. So this is something we've got to be mindful of. So whilst he says, she has agency, he was smoking it in front of her, normalizing it the whole time. She was probably drunk when she agreed to take it because she drinks a lot. Come on, dude. Like, just accept it and just be done. Let's not do the whole she had agency, thing. That's the way that I see it. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. But I'm just like, that was a lot. That's a lot to expect her to overcome as someone who already has an addiction under her belt. I think that you should just understand that you were a great influence in that. Now, was he the reason that she passed away? In my opinion, yes and no, but we'll get to it. Let me tell you about what happened between Amy's father and him. Now, this gives me reason to pause as well, because he says that, he got married without even meeting the father. Okay. So that was him just basically going and doing his own thing and wanting to take charge of the situation, and essentially shows that she was in a form of isolation when she married him, like that in itself. Right. So, because he had no idea that was even going to happen. So poof, she's married, right? And after that, they formed a relationship. Now, he said that they were good friends. He even went to visit him in jail one time. And then suddenly something changed. And the father just stopped talking to him. And he doesn't know to this day what changed. And I'm like, the trouble with the toxic, narcissistic, or abusive type is they get very vague when they've done something and they know what they've done. They get very vague about those parts of their story. Now, bear in mind that as he tells the story, there are parts that are missing, and we'll get to that in a minute. Huge parts of the puzzle just missing, right? As he spins this new narrative about him being, a lost puppy, them both being lost puppies, and apparently they both got addicted together, and it was just a whirlwind love affair, and just, the rugs were part of it, but they were in love. Okay, sir. Right, so that was his story. Now, my interpretation of that, because your father-in-law doesn't just switch up on you and never speaks to you again, apart from to tell you that you should get a divorce. My thought when I heard that was, oh, he realized that you were just playing with her top. You were playing head games. He realized that the image that you were spinning was not the reality of what you were up to. And that is why he just didn't want anything to do with you. Because listen to what this guy says. And I'm using his words instead of going over to the documentary movie film thing, because that's something that you can just say is salacious, dramatized, not true, and all of this. So I want to use his words to kind of like discuss it. So here's what he says about the father.
And he said,
Oh, crap.
on and on, you and he said, this is going on and on, you and Amy. Well, what's happening? I said, I will divorce her, Mitch. If you think that's, he said, if you love her, you'd leave her because it's not, you know, together, you guys are not.
Pause. He says, this is going on and on. What's happening? Meaning you're dragging this out, son. Now, this is after he's already stopped talking to this guy. He comes back and it's just like, this is going on. What's going on? Right? Listen to what he says.
Not going to work. He said, you need to trust me and divorce her. And if it's meant to be, you'll be, you know. So I said, I will. Let's see. I said something about, you know, me being a shield for the past sort of 5-6 years. Obviously, I don't want to keep doing that now if I'm not going to be part of it. So please try and do that for me. This is obviously Amy was still alive, so it's a completely different mindset. I think I said something like, would you help me, you know, with the deposit on a house or something? I said, because obviously after being subject to the media I've had, I said, I'm going to really struggle. I said, and also I haven't got much. If you could help me, that would be great. He said, of course, we'll look after you. I said, I'll not ask Amy for a penny. I said, you know that. He said, no, I know.
So now it seems, because this bit of it, not just this bit, the whole thing quite, to me, strikes me as disingenuous. But this is one of the parts, because here he starts talking about Mitch and he's trying to very subtly blame Mitch for the divorce. But sir, didn't you say that you divorced her because she had an affair? Wasn't that the main reason why? But now you're saying that, oh, I agreed to have a divorce because he called me up and basically asked me to, is what he's sideways trying to say here. He also says that he's never asked Amy for a penny and then proceeds to ask Amy's dad for enough pennies to get a deposit on a house. Like, come on, sir. What are we doing? What are we doing? Right? And he gets called out a couple of times in this interview. He does, well, the guy kind of pushes it in a certain direction where he has to talk about and address certain things. However, doesn't in some other places. But that's what he said. So it's no surprise to me, just seeing the way he's spinning that narrative right now, why the father doesn't speak to him. Do you see what I'm saying? It's no surprise to me. Even if they did have that conversation at the time, that's not the reason why you divorced her. So don't make out like you were trying to be cooperative with the father that didn't like you anyway, and that's the reason why you divorced her. We're going to get to the reason, I believe, that there was a divorce happening. But we got to see all the bits and pieces before I say it, or else you're going to think then I'm a little bit crazy, right? So we're going to get to that in a minute, right? So he says in this interview also that, you know, he says in this interview also that Amy got worse while she was in prison, you know, and, you know, that was somehow because he wasn't around. And my feeling on it is Amy got worse because you were playing with her head top more than usual when you weren't around, because you weren't around. Because this is what the toxic, narcissistic, and controlling type will do, right? When they are not presently in your space, they will play head games and they'll play mind games, silent treatments, stonewalling, all of these things to keep themselves relevant in your world. What more of a time can you think of where you need to remain relevant than when you're behind bars? Right? So I'm just like, was she desperately losing it and spiraling because she had this terrible, rug addiction that she had no control over. I mean, she did have a terrible rug addiction that she had no control. That is true. But I'm like, did it descend because he wasn't around to control the situation? Or did it descend because he was manipulating way more and causing her even more emotional distress than usual so that he can regain control in a situation where he had no direct access and control? Does that make sense? This is what I'm thinking. So these are the thoughts that are going around in my mind. I'm like, okay. And even if it did descend because you weren't around, it shows how much of a controlling presence you were in that situation, even though you're kind of like, hands off, I had nothing to do with it. We were just drifting and floating and things were just happening. And it just, no, sir. No. No. I'm not buying that at all. You were the controller in that situation. Okay. You were the driver of that situation from introducing it to her onwards, as in my opinion. Okay. Now there's also a possible discard and triangulation factor here because guys, you guys probably didn't know, but I kept on digging until I found something because I was like, something is up with this story. Something is up with the story. And guess what I found was up with the story? So he says that let's listen to it. Let's listen to it.
When I first moved up to Yorkshire after I got out of a rehab up there, we spoke about getting married again. Yeah, which probably gave her dad nightmares. But yeah, that was.
Okay, so he finds out that she's cheated. He goes for the divorce. And then, after the divorce, basically is what he's talking about here. They spoke about getting married again, right? This is a story that he's telling us.
Where we were at. Yeah, still very much, yeah, we're going to do this. She came to see me at Christmas, from Christmas together.
All right. So this is a status. They had a divorce. Then they was talking about getting married. This is the only thing he says. And here's what he doesn't say. He doesn't say that when he was in rehab, just before divorcing Amy, he met someone named Sarah and started a relationship with her. That's what he doesn't say. So with that in mind, he started a relationship with Sarah in rehab, and you were still talking to Amy about getting married again. That's the first red flag, right? That's the first bit that tells me, okay, so you broke up with her for cheating on you, and then you struck up. I mean, I'm not going to throw knives at him for striking up a relationship with someone else before they're divorced, because she did cheat on him. So I'm going to give him that. However, why are you not mentioning it in this very candid interview that you're doing, where you're taking full responsibility for your behavior? Why is Sarah not mentioned at all? Why? Because it's a huge part of the story. It's huge, and it gets even bigger. That the relevance of Sarah gets even bigger. Now, when I chat GPT'd it said, oh, after the divorce, they didn't have much communication. They were talking to each other with letters up until the divorce, but after the divorce, there was nothing. That was wrong. Computer says that was wrong. Okay, that was incorrect information. There was a lot of communication between them up until the very moment or the very week in which she passed. That coming out of his own mouth. This isn't just me kind of like getting bits of information out of his own mouth. We know that coming up to the week of, he was still doing this triangulation thing. And triangulation is what? Emotional abuse, right? So right here, we're doing this dance. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. So let's keep on listening to the story. Let's keep on listening to what else he has to say about it.
It was after that point where I think you probably went to Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And then she comes and she visits you.
That's right.
You're both talking about reconciling.
And then bit by bit I slipped back into addiction, unfortunately. Yeah.
Right. Bit by bit, he slips back into his addiction, unfortunately. And he says that, so blase. Now, the thing is, he met Sarah in rehab. So Sarah had a struggling issue as well, right? So he comes out, strikes a relationship with Sarah, and then comes out talking to Amy about reconciliation. Then he slips into this addiction with new girlfriend that he doesn't mention this entire interview. Anybody got any questions? Is anybody else also giving them the side eye now? Because I am. Because aren't you the new improved version of yourself that's just telling us the truth, just wanting to set the record straight? So why are you not setting the record straight with all the information? This is my question now. It's not about what he did then. It's about what you're trying to spin now. Please do not get the two confused. Okay? This is what I'm questioning. It's not what he did then, even though it's still kind of messed up. It's how he is spinning the narrative now that lets me know that you are still very much messed up, sir. Very much so. Side eye, right? Thank you, Aunt Boo. NBA. I totally agree. Was triangulation with Sarah and Amy? Absolutely. Triangulation with Sarah and Amy all the way. And I was thinking from the very beginning, I was like, I don't know. Something doesn't seem right about this. Oh, she just doesn't seem right. Let's keep going though, because there's more.
Okay. And from that point on, it was more a case of get better now rather than me and you. It was, I was going from the stage where we'd been at before, which was nothing innocent about drug use, but was more a naive smoking of drugs became injecting of drugs. Okay. So that was something that couldn't be around her and wasn't for her and didn't, she had just was never going to let that be something she'd see me doing, and she wouldn't and didn't. It was, yeah, so I'd gone to that level of it.
And here's what I hear in this situation. First of all, so you went off with your new girlfriend, which at this point, I guess she knows about now. So it changed in her mind from just focusing on getting, maybe she didn't, I don't know, but she's focusing on getting you better because you've gone to another level. And what is important here is he says she wouldn't let him do it around her. She wouldn't let him do it around her. Like he had advanced from the smoking of it to the other stuff. And so it's not like he didn't want to do it around Amy. No, she wouldn't. So with her getting cleaned up, she now had boundaries around certain things. So he could not bring that new level of the addiction to her. Because like he said out of his own mouth, she wouldn't let it. She did not want to see it. She had a judgment around that she would not drop. Like initially, when he was smoking it, he managed to be around enough to normalize it, to make her think, oh, well, But when it came to the next level, and she was thankfully clean enough in herself to be able to put up that boundary, she was having none of it. This is what I hear out of his own mouth. Guys, you tell me if you heard different, because that's what I heard. So you weren't protecting her in that moment. You were probably trying to reel her into it so she could pay for more of your dope. Probably is what I'm thinking. Let's see. He can say anything because Amy isn't here to set the record straight. Exactly. You can say anything. And he sure does leave out a lot of information. He sure does. Let's keep going.
Just before I got told that Amy had passed away, the last letter that I received was Amy to just say, as we'd always said, nicknames, silliness, jokes, and she said, me and you, let's let's really, really give it a go as friends, yeah? And I said, let's do it. We'll always be friends. But it's in the sense of, because for a few weeks earlier, we'd been saying, shall we get back together? She'd said, I want to come and see you. Shall we? So we tentatively talked about it. And then she decided, she decided, you know what? Yeah, cool. It. So I was like, okay, that's cool.
So this is the bit that I'm filling in, the bit that you guys, some of you don't know. So when he's having this conversation with her the week before, your Sarah, your girlfriend, is 6 or 7 months pregnant. Now, I'm assuming that Amy knows about this at this point, and you're still trying to have a conversation with Amy about getting back with her. She shut you down. Now, he's saying it as if it was a jokey thing, like, oh, yeah, no. She shut you down. In that situation, she stopped the triangulation. And this is something that I'm always saying to you guys, like, you got to stop the train. Do not expect them to stop the train. They are not going to do it. They will keep you on this hamster wheel of triangulation, merry-go-round, on and on and on and on for as long as it makes them feel comfortable. And I am willing to bet that he used the fact that she cheated on him to justify this roller coaster, to keep her proving herself to him, which keeps her tied to that situation. Does that make sense? It's like, oh, I did this bad thing, because these toxics, these narcissistic and abusive types will take the one bad thing that you do and use it to keep you tethered to a really unhealthy situation where you are trying to correct that one bad thing that you did. Or I'm sure she did a load of bad things in that relationship, quite frankly. I'm not saying that, but I mean, that unacceptable thing. So the unacceptable thing was her cheating, and she did that unacceptable thing. So as a result, he got with someone else and like dragged her. Now this is years. This is years, because they got divorced in 2009. He didn't come out as public with his new girlfriend until 2010, and this girlfriend didn't have the baby until 2011. I think she was still, wait a minute, 2000, wait, what's the dates? Hang on. Because she was still alive when baby was born. I thought that she wasn't alive when baby was born, but she was still alive when the baby was born. What date was that? I've got 2000 June and 2000 May. I feel like, yeah, 2011 May, the baby was born, and 2000 June, Amy deleted. Wait, so hang on a minute. No. Something's wrong with this equation. So what did I think? Hang on. I think I've got this incorrect. Because if it's a week of, she would have already had the baby. Sorry, this is incorrect. So while Sarah was, because the original information I got was that she was still pregnant when she had, when Amy passed away. But in actual fact, she had already had the baby when Amy had. So this is correction here. Ignore this information here. So Blake had already given, Sarah had already given birth to his first child when she was having this conversation about getting back together. He had already given birth. So he dragged her through that, all of that time. They never got back together. He's triangulating and all of that stuff. Meanwhile, Sarah's having full-grown human being with this guy, and he's having conversations about getting back with Amy at this time, and Amy shuts it down. Sorry, ignore this bit. She wasn't pregnant. She'd actually already had the baby, which was something I discovered later on after doing this. The dates were something around May 2011 and June 2011. Baby was born May, and Amy passed away June. So yeah, that is the situation at hand. This is what we know. Okay, let's keep going. So let's keep going with this. Hang on. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. So what he's basically saying is, when she passed away that week, before she passed away, she finally had the strength to end the triangulation merry-go-round and say, I am out of the situation. I am ejecting myself. I am stopping this train. Yet he doesn't think he has anything to do with her passing. He doesn't think he had anything to do with her passing. Now, bear in mind, in all of this, Amy, he said it himself, the only thing that Amy really wanted to do past singing is have his children and have a family and just, have that family dynamic. He said that himself. So the pain she must have experienced having to watch him have that whole situation with somebody else is beyond, as far as I can see. It must have been beyond for her. Yeah, he doesn't see that as any influence as to why she may have been so distressed that she fell into relapse, because she was working on being clean, I think, in the time at which that week where she passed away through alcohol poisoning. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let's keep going. And give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Let's keep going.
The week Amy passed, we were still I was in jail, unfortunately. We were still very much talking about the possibility of reconciling again. So I would say the definitive moment I realised that wasn't going to happen was when I got told that she passed away. Is when I knew it was never final for me. The divorce wasn't the end. The arguments weren't the end. The press, her dad, none of that was strong enough to pull us apart. It was only her and I saying, nobody understands this but us. Let's see if we can show that we get clean. You do that, I'll do that, and then we'll see where we're at. But it didn't happen.
But here's the thing. I'm like, okay, hang on a minute. So again, proof out of his own mouth that it would never have ended, because it was in his mind, the only end was in her passing, which is what happens with a lot of narcissistic types. There is never an end to you and them until there is an end to you, so to speak. And this is what he is verbalizing, articulating right in front of us. In his mind, the divorce was not the end. Okay, so you didn't really care that much about the cheating then, did you? But you cared enough to use it against her, right? Because then if you were like, oh my gosh, it was just me and you and no one understands like me and you, why were you not with this woman? Why were you with somebody else? Why? Is it because she put up a boundary about going so far? Is it because you needed to punish her in order to feel your sense of worth in the situation as you went down the toilet? Both of those things can be true. But what cannot be true is him being helplessly in love with her. That is not the truth. And that is why he missed great details out of his narrative, because then we would have been able to see that this is not about love. This was about mind games, control, punishment, triangulation, maintaining control of the situation, breaking down her boundaries. But this is not about endless love. Oh my gosh, it was just you two and that was it. No, there was a third party involved who had a whole human being with you. And it keeps going. Let's keep going.
Her and I saying, nobody understands this but us. Let's see if we can show that we get clean. You do that, I'll do that, and then we'll see where we're at. But it didn't happen.
Maybe this is the 2015 film. I feel like the depiction was that because you were incarcerated, right, at this time, there was a photo that you saw.
Oh yeah, sure.
With the
As in
infidelity.
And this is where he brings up the cheating. And listen to how he talks about this.
In terms of more of it, yeah, in terms of like the relationship side of it rather than the deep emotive side, on the surface level, you've got to remember that when we met, he had to think of somebody else. I was jealous he wasn't where I was at in that relationship. However, the marriage thing for me.
Notice how he bounces around in this whole conversation, because he's a little bit like he doesn't know where to put it. He's all over the place here, but let's keep going.
Meant it went into a different realm. So infidelity in a marriage was ultimately for me something that I did struggle with, and I would have struggled with if we would have reconciled. In fact, I did when we tried to.
And I'm sorry, Blake, you're saying that infidelity is something that you would have struggled with. You're saying if
in that stage after marriage, yeah, I thought we're married, we're not doing that anymore.
There's no more infidelity. Okay.
And I can perhaps Amy, I was in jail. It's not, I'm not. I understand fully and completely. Amy was a vulnerable addict. There were people out there selling stories on the left, right, and centre at the time. I think she was desperately lonely, desperately sad. I'm not kind of pedestaling her. I'm saying I know addiction, and I know that Amy's heart was always with me at that stage.
Okay.
I know that, and I knew that, and she'd tell me that. I just knew it was the situation, but I still couldn't. It wasn't something I could abide in a sense.
So it wasn't something you could abide, even though you started another relationship while she was still married. And that didn't help you to resolve the situation. So you kept dragging that out and punishing her for cheating on you, even though you essentially cheated on her too. And you're still talking about it as though, it was just unacceptable to me. But you knew that her love was with you. So then why did you drag it out and punish her in that way for so long? Because we're talking years now. We're talking years of this triangulation, which is emotional abuse, by the way, guys. We're talking years of this triangulation from 2009. This back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And he doesn't mention it because he knows it would blow up his whole endless love narrative that he's trying to spin in this situation. So whilst her addiction to alcohol was not his fault, she had that from beforehand. I do, based on the timeline and how things went, I feel like a lot of his actions played a huge role in her passing. And I think it's ignorant to think that it didn't. That's ridiculous. She was going through sobriety. She was struggling with that, obviously. And this is what you're doing when you're saying to the father that you want her to get clean and that's your only thing that you want to do. Of course, he doesn't talk to you anymore. Of course, he doesn't talk to you anymore. What's surprising about that? Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. So, yeah. And also, another thing. Now, apparently, him and the girlfriend, Sarah, slipped into their own spiraling thing. They had 2 children who were both taken away and put in care. Now, I want to know, where are his children now? Because I could not track whether they are back with him or not. And if they're not with him, why are they not with him? He's in a new relationship because Sarah passed away. I suspect, they haven't confirmed, there was no kind of confirmed thing, but they said the toxicology report says that they were basically of the H. She passed away as a result of that, as far as I can deduce. So you had 2 children with this woman. She passed away. Well, the children were taken into care. She passed away. And then you found someone else who we can't get a timeline on when you found this other person, probably an overlap, but whatever. So you missed the mother of your child out of that entire story and interview that you gave. Also, you can make it look like your relationship was some endless love, true love situation. No, she was obsessed. She was attached. She was trauma bonded. She was codependent towards you. And were you codependent towards her too? Yeah, financially, I would say so. And there is a kind of mutual codependency that happens with the abuser because they need you in order to feel better and regulate and all of that stuff. So it gets a bit complicated with that concern. But he was the driver in that situation from the very beginning. From the very beginning, you cannot tell me that him introducing her to those drugs were not intentional. I believe it was intentional as far as I'm concerned, especially seeing the way their relationship played out. Just because you're an addict doesn't mean you are not. In fact, it's probably more likely that you are. But a lot of people are separating the two, like he's trying to get you to. Like, oh, we were addicts, but we were good. I was a good person. No, you weren't. Because you were also in jail for beating 3 rounds of crap out of somebody to the point where they were needing a plate for some part of their body to rehabilitate them. So, yeah. As much as everyone's in the comments like, oh my gosh, he seems like a lovely person. He was in jail for not being a lovely person. That was what he was in jail for. One of the times at least. All right. And what's up with all of this omission on the timelines? And let's not forget, remember where he said, oh, I've never asked Amy for a penny, right? This is what he says in the interview, whilst also knowing that in 2019, he went for Amy's estate. He tried to get 1 million out of her estate in 2019. Now, you could argue how he was in the depths of his addiction and this was going on, and no doubt he probably was, right? However, why are you in this interview acting like you didn't do that? In this candid, sharing all interview, acting like that didn't happen. That's my problem with this. Because if you're going to bear all, let's bear it all. Why did you not have this conversation and say, yeah, at the end of the day, I did have Sarah on the go and then I did have Amy on the go, and that must have been quite distressing for her. And, I take responsibility for maybe influencing the way that she felt at the time when she maybe had a relapse. This is the conversation you should have been having, sir. If you are, genuinely reflective and seeing the bigger picture and really reflecting on your behavior and taking accountability, that's what you should be. This is fake accountability. And that is what I felt from the very beginning, which is why I was like, I feel like you're full of crap. And when I get that sense, I keep digging because I'm like, no. Why does the father suddenly not like you? That doesn't just come out of nowhere. Why does she suddenly decide to, okay, you could maybe argue the point that it's part of her illness and the addiction. It could have been driven by just the addiction. I had the feeling that it wasn't. And I think I was right to think that, because there was all of this triangulation going on. And even though she did shut it down in the end, there's a great deal of pain that comes with doing so, especially with the history that they had. A majority of her wealth was spent on that dope stuff. And what did he do when she cheated? He replaced her. He literally replaced her. If that's not a discard and a half, I don't know what is. He replaced her before they'd even gotten divorced. And then he dragged her along for the ride in their relationship, just keeping them both there. But he loved this woman? Come on. Toxic codependent relationship. He's definitely trying to romanticize that situation. Absolutely. And the problem that I have with the host is why are you allowing this romanticization to happen? This is highly unhealthy. This is a highly unhealthy, toxic, volatile conversation or situation that he's trying to romanticize. That should have been cut at the knees. Like, sure. Don't you think that there was a lot of codependency happening with that, though? Where do you think that toxicity, because he definitely dismisses the toxicity to a certain extent. He minimizes it. He says Back to Black, was all about me. And he basically talks about that with such glee that she made an album about him, even though the album was basically about him being a toxic POS. even though it's about that, you know, because to me, it seems that he's all about the association with Amy. And it's like he believes that association makes him the famous one. Like, just from the conversation, I was just like, I feel like you're clout chasing. I feel like you're using her name to make yourself relevant. Because why are we even having this interview? Who cares about Blake now? Who cares about Blake? I mean, Blake, people wouldn't even care about Blake at the time if Amy didn't make him the center of her world, which, again, red flag, right? This guy literally has done, I mean, he says in the interview that he did a couple of like TV gigs before he met Amy that were a lot of fun, but he really hasn't done anything with his life. You know, Amy was it. So the only thing that he is actually known for is putting one of the greatest artists of that time on rugs and then dragging her through the mud. That's basically it. But then you want to have an interview about it. You know what I mean? Because you're so sorry. Because you don't want to take the blame for the way in which, you know, things ended. It's giving you a still very, 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 very toxic, highly narcissistic behavior. That's what it's given. Like the fact that you can sit on that couch knowing everything that are between the lines of the story that you are spinning and be like, oh, you know, you were just naive. She was naive. You were not naive. You've been doing the stuff and other stuff for years and years and years before you ever met Amy. She was naive. You were not naive. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. But that's my thought on that. So let's listen to because I watched Back to Black years ago, right? So I was just like, okay, he spoke about how Back to Black framed him as a, you know, like a bad person, and he preferred remembering Amy. And I tried to get access to that documentary, but I couldn't get access to it. So I didn't get to watch that. However, apparently the father was more to blame in that situation. Now, talking about the father, I want to mention that I do not think that the father is innocent in this situation. And I do think that the father might be part of the reason why, or part of the trauma that has contributed to her first addiction, because it touches on I think it's in the Back to Black or something I saw, touches on the fact that Amy's dad, mother, and father were in an abusive dynamic when she was growing up, right? And that, yeah, you know, when you've got like that kind of poor childhood where there's probably some neglect involved because they are in a narcissistic or abusive dynamic, just by the very essence, just by the very nature of that dynamic, your children will be neglected. It doesn't matter how much you want to say, oh, no, you're not. Your mind is completely consumed by that person who is doing a number on you. Mentally, emotionally, sometimes even physically. You don't have the capacity. Now, that's not your fault. That's just the reality of the situation. Okay, so that is where she came from in the beginning. So it would make sense that there was codependency and all of this stuff happening, and also her own addiction, self-medicating, regulating her own nervous system. Makes sense, right? So I'm not saying that the father is an angel, but I understand that when a devil sees another devil, they know that it's the devil. You know what I mean? This is what I understand. So in that, please let me be clear. I am not defending the father and saying he's completely innocent. And the reason I bring that up is because apparently in the remembering Amy, it talks more about the father. And this is why Blake likes that one, because the blame isn't on him. It's more tossed towards the family. Right? In this interview, he starts talking about how her rug dealer was known by everybody, and, you know, basically implying that nobody tried to help Amy, you know? Yeah, because you were around guarding that entire situation and isolating her. What were they supposed to do? You married her in secret. What were they supposed to do? Like, so he's trying to shift the buck here, there, and everywhere, when he was at the same time causing all of these problems in the background. highly narcissistic, abusive behavior. Just reading through those lines. But let's have a listen to this lady who breaks down the kind of like back to black, because this guy, Blake, doesn't like the back to black thing. But she breaks down how it relates, the documentary relates to real life, which is why I have it here. Have a listen to this.
Blake from the Back to Black biopic. What happened to the real-life Blake from the Back to Black biopic? Blake was Amy Winehouse's troubled husband who she met in a pub. The pair got married in 2007, but they had a toxic marriage filled with battling addiction. In the film, we see Blake break Amy's heart, despite her wanting to fight for the marriage while he's in prison. At the end of the movie, we see Amy trying her best to get sober, but she struggles to cope with the news that Blake has now had a baby with a woman named Sarah. Real life Sarah went on to have 2 children with Blake, but their relationship was also filled with tragedy. Just days before she found out that she was pregnant with his second child, Blake had an overdose and was placed into a coma. Sarah said that she nearly considered not going ahead with the pregnancy because doctors didn't even know if Blake would survive. She also revealed that Amy and Blake never really stopped speaking. She said Amy used to phone Blake late at night and he'd speak to her for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Sometimes I would get annoyed. She would say all sorts of things about how much she loved him. She was always telling Blake she loved him. If he'd wanted to get
trying to prove to Blake that she was sorry and basically proving mode, right?
Back with Amy, he had plenty of opportunity.
Now, if he'd wanted, this is surprising. Apart from this confirming the kind of interactions they were having while Sarah was with him, which is what I thought from the get-go. I was like, sounds like triangulation. And here we are, right? And listen to what she says here, though.
To get back with Amy, he had plenty of opportunity to go back to her, but he chose to be with me.
Bingo. She says if he wanted to get back with Amy, he had plenty of opportunity to do so, but he chose to be with her. Why? If they had the love, endless love scenario where nothing could come between them, why? Because he knew that he could keep hold of Amy at the same time. Now, he lost control of that when Amy started to get sober, because Amy started putting up boundaries. Amy started to be like, you know what? We're good as friends. You just keep that. You just stay over there. So he was starting to lose control of the situation anyway. But he felt like he could keep both of them on the hook, which is why he never went back to Amy, in my opinion. Not because if you love someone in the way that he's selling on this podcast, why would you not be with her? She's literally begging you to be with her. Why?
Amy passed away in 2011. Her dad, Mitch, very publicly blamed Blake. Blake and Sarah broke up and he's now said to have moved on with a different partner and living in Leeds. He recently appeared on Good Morning Britain where he took responsibility for making a lot of mistakes in their relationship. He said that he's carried a lot of blame over her death for the...
She says it was recently, but this video was made in 2024. Okay, so recently is... do you know what I mean? Not recently, basically.
Last 10 years.
Let's see that last.
He took responsibility for making a lot of mistakes in their relationship. He said that he's carried a lot of blame over her death for the last 10 years.
Okay. He's carried a lot of blame and he was taking responsibility for all of that. But now he's in this interview not taking responsibility, but taking responsibility, but not. And telling half stories about the situation. Guys, let me know your thoughts, because apparently this is an example of a really genuine person here. I mean, honestly, if we're going to get anywhere, we've got to stop being so gullible. We have got to stop being so gullible. We've got to learn and read between these lines, because what are we talking about? What are we talking about? This guy has done all of these things. He gets on and tells a sob story about himself, which is essentially what he did the whole time. Like in the beginning of the interview was talking about his childhood and him, you know, not thinking of himself in a good way and how he was bullied. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Okay. You've done nothing significant in this world apart from, again, give someone who was a great influence in this world rugs and spend their money to support your habit is what you've done. So again, coming out with your sub story, I don't see why we should care about that. Although people ate it up. People ate it up. Nothing like a good sub story, I guess, because people ate it up. Let's listen to what Amy said in one interview about their relationship, which I think sums up the whole thing, really, quite frankly. Listen to this.
The same birthday. Isn't that weird? You and your boyfriend share the same birthday. Isn't that weird?
How do you know that?
The psychic.
Yeah. It's right though, isn't it?
Isn't that weird? Well, when I met him, I remember the day I met him, I said to him, when's your birthday? And he said, September the 14th. And I said, ask me when mine is, and September 14th. And I was like, don't you think that's weird? And he was like, no, loads of people have sex around New Year's and Christmas. I was like, oh, do you know what? But that sums up our whole relationship. I'm the dreamer. I've got my head in the clouds, and he's just like, anyway, every balloon I blow up, he bursts.
That's significant, guys. That is significant, because he's here like, oh, you know, I was always like, oh, Amy's great. No, I don't believe you were. I don't believe that you were, oh, Amy's great. I believe that you were around her, pushing her buttons, making her feel like crap behind the scenes. I believe that you gave her the H on purpose, because you wanted to be able to control her and her finances. Now, you're not going to be able to walk in there and just do that, right? You're going to have to you're going to have to get her involved in some way. She's not just going to pay for your habit whilst you just basically do what you want. That's not going to happen. So you got to get her involved in some way. Now, you said you wanted her clean, yet you are having conversations where she's telling you that she doesn't want to see you do that. And that's never going to happen. Why are you having those conversations? She's clean at this point. So you wanted to rinse and repeat, but instead of smoking it around her, you wanted to be doing the other stuff and advancing, putting her in a situation where she could potentially advance her addiction into another space with you. And I suspect the reason why he was with the other lady is because he was trying to break her down to a point where she would allow that situation to be. And then he got to a point where he was so desperate financially, because he was on the more hardcore thing, that he was trying to get back with her anyway. But at that point, she was already too aware and had decided that actually the friend thing might be the best thing, because I don't want that around me. I don't want all of that around me. Do you know what I mean? Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that she didn't experience any pain as a result of that situation. I'm sure there was a great deal of the pain involved in that situation. A great deal of pain. But she did the right thing, as in cutting that situation off, because he was never going to do it. He basically told you that in the interview, that he was never going to do it. And this is not a mark of love. This is a mark of his control and his need to keep that control. But anyway, let's go to the court of public opinion. Let's see what they say.
Down for his first in-depth interview. He appeared. Amy Winehouse's ex-husband Blake Fielder Civil has sat down for his first in-depth interview. He appeared on the We Need to Talk podcast with Paul Brunson, and if you followed me for a long time, you'll know this is one of my favourite podcasts. And the first thing I'll say is, myself included, I think we have a preconceived notion of what Blake might be like from that time that he was with Amy and everything we were reading in the media. Watching him in this interview, it was clear he was being incredibly candid. He is well-spoken and intelligent. He's very self-aware. At times in the chat, he felt quite vulnerable, but also very endearing because of that. And there were points when I was watching this.
And that is how they get you. That is how he got her. You see how this works? Like, there's got to be something good about them. Like, what did you expect to see? Like, oh my gosh, she was like genuine. Yeah, they play that whole thing. I need us to get on board with understanding that these people do look like good people, and they can string sentences together, and they can seem as though they're genuine people. That's how they get people on board. Let's keep going.
Interview where I felt emotional watching it for him, because he speaks about Amy with such a fondness. And when he talks about him and Amy's relationship.
What did you expect him to do? Come out and completely destroy her talk about how she was this and that and that's not going to get him anywhere. He's already hated by the public. He needs you on side. What do you think he was going to do? He spoke with her with such a fondness, despite the fact that he treated her like absolute dog crap. Especially coming up to the end of their, nearer the end of her life. So after her dedicating literally everything to him, an entire album to him, and laying herself down for this guy, he walks off with another woman and triangulates her for the best part of 2 years. And then has a baby with someone else. Are we okay? But, you know, he spoke with her with such fondness, so that means something, right? Let's keep going.
It's with such normality, like no airs and graces, no celeb couple status. That was just him and her normal. Blake also said that the reason he wanted to do this interview was to kind of take control of his own narrative, because there has been so much written about him and his relationship with Amy Winehouse. If you
back in 2011? We're in 2026, my guy. What have you done that's been significant for anybody to talk about you in any way? That's like Oprah's husband coming out and being like, oh, I'm going to do an what? I mean, people would watch it because it's Oprah's husband. You know what I mean? But this is an ex-husband. They weren't even together when she passed away. This is an ex-husband. That's like Oprah getting married to her husband and then getting a divorce from her husband, and then him getting on to talk about the relationship like how many years after the fact? 15? Like, come on, guys. Why are we not? We need to critically think about the situation. Why is he even sat there at all? Let's keep going.
To take assumptions from the things that you might have read around that time that Blake and Amy were together, there were a lot of things that you might think, and myself included. One of these being that he introduced Amy to drugs, he kept her on them, and he is the reason she became an addict. And the media, as well as Amy's dad, Mitch, have kind of...
He is. All of that is true. He introduced, he kept her on them. He's the reason she became an addict of those things. The alcoholism was already there. But he knew she was vulnerable from the beginning because she already had that alcohol addiction. So he knew he could play with her. Okay?
Talk with Blake Fielder Civil. Have you seen We Need to Talk with Blake Fielder Civil, Amy Winehouse's ex? I'm obsessed. Paul is just a legend. I've an amazing...
Pause. Guys, give this video a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let's keep going.
Interviewer. But Blake, I'll be honest, I feel sorry for him. I can understand why Amy's parents feel like resentment towards him, of course, but from a neutral position with no emotional attachment to anybody, so I don't know them, can't blame him. I'm sorry, you can't. As an adult, make your own choices in life, right? And Blake was just another lost soul like Amy, figuring out life himself. They were both on a destructive path. He just survived. Who knows, maybe jail helped him come off the path a little bit. Everything happens for a reason. But sadly in this life, it's so natural to want to blame someone, but you really can't. It's very clear that Amy, by the way, RIP, God bless her soul, she is phenomenal. I love her to pieces. It's very clear that she was going to do what she wanted to do. It's not no one could tell her otherwise. I relate to that because I'm like that. I've been on some dodgy paths in life, and sometimes I think, how am I still alive? I'm definitely team Blake. Enough is enough. Imagine living your whole life being blamed for someone else's decisions and death. It would have been even worse if they were together at the time or on the sesh together and it happened. That didn't happen. One thing that people need to remember is just because Blake is the man in the situation, it doesn't mean that he's the one with his life together and he has to be the one who leads her down the right path. He was also a lost, naive soul going down the wrong path. No one to guide him. I also think if you've got the addict in you, it doesn't matter who or where you are, you'll find it. And I've been there myself. As Blake said in the interview, an addiction comes in so many different forms. You can be crack, heroin, coke, it can be shopping, it can be men, it can be obviously alcohol, cigarettes. There's so many forms of addiction. It can be abuse. You've got an addictive personality and that's your path. You'll find it no matter who you're around. Blake didn't invent heroin, let's be honest. Blake said in the interview that Amy's management said that their job is to sell out stages and book as many stages as possible, not to make sure that Amy wasn't taking drugs. You are supposed to look after your artist, and you should, with the amount of money you're making, and you should genuinely care about that.
Yeah, and as a boyfriend, you're not supposed to bring the hatred to the house and offer it to her. I don't understand why we're having a conversation about her management team, whose job it is to put her on stage over and above, because you're listening to what he's saying. Like, come on, girl. Come on, girl. Which person do you think has more responsibility in that situation? Now, if the management team had brought H to her and said, hey, try it, you'd be up in arms. This situation is being normalized because happened in an intimate partner situation.
Person. I'm not putting blame on them, but there's more pieces to the puzzle. You know, you can't be, as an adult, you can't be watched 24/7. You can't be looked after the whole time. Maybe if Blake was with her and not in prison, it might not have happened. Instead of blaming him for her drug use, she could have lived longer because of him. It's a real tough one. I just absolutely loved. I was gripped. That podcast, I was absolutely gripped.
She clearly doesn't know the background around that situation then, because she doesn't, based on what she's saying. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let's keep going.
Podcast I think I've ever watched. So Paul C. Brunson and Blake Fielder Civil, Amy Winehouse's ex-husband. It's the new episode of the We Need to Talk podcast. This period, like the emotion, this interview was so emotionally charged, and Blake is so authentic. Like, him and Amy were just in their own world. And what I love about Blake is that it was just vulnerability on a platter. You could feel the emotion, you could feel the vulnerability, you could feel the shame that you can tell he feels for his addiction that he had. You can feel the love and adoration that he has for Amy, like, through watching this interview. It's unbelievable. Like, I don't even know the best way to describe it, but you just can feel how much and how deep that love is still there. And I just, honestly, like, my hat goes off to this guy. Anyone who's dealing with addiction, like, it's so easy for the blame to be put on people for their behavior when they're going through this type of thing in life, right? But ultimately, addiction is a disease. If someone has a mental health condition, if someone has a physical health condition and their behavior is a certain way, there would be empathy, there would be compassion, there would be grace.
True. But he's healthy now. So, and he's here to reflect and be candid and honest. So why were whole chunks of his story missing? That's my question. Let's keep going.
When someone has addiction, their behavior is difficult, is challenging, right? But what people need to realize is that addiction is a disease. Anyway, please go watch this interview. I'm a huge Amy Winehouse fan. I love Amy. I'm going to say that with my chest, period. Amy Winehouse is the best artist of our generation to come out of this country, and nobody can argue with me. But yeah, this interview, chef's kiss. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. But I loved this.
Okay, so this is what he posted up, because I went to his Instagram this morning to just have a look at, to see, how he's progressed in his posting, throughout this time and stuff like that. So there's lots of posts of him just doing random things, and then there's like posts of him, Amy and him, and then there's one post of Sarah, him and his first child, I assume, and then nothing else to do with anything after that. Now, this is what I found on his 2023 post. Thank you, my fans, for everything. What fans? What fans do you have? 2026. He posted that. "2026, he said that. Not 26, 23 on me. Dates and names. Oh my gosh. I got to get it together. Point is, you get my point. 2023, he posted this. What fans? You've done nothing. You've done literally nothing with your life. What fans? I mean, it's not like, it's just crazy to me that you would post that after everything that you have done within that situation. Like, the healthy you posting this. Here's another thing that he posted. Back to Blake as a spin-off of the Back to Black, which was dedicated to him. Yeah, that was also in 2023. Back to Blake. Yeah, because it's not about him, but okay. You know, here's another one where he tributes, because he likes to do this too. He likes to tribute things so he can get some sort of like attention via posting about Amy type thing. He does that quite a bit. He stopped doing that recently. I think it's because he's got a new girlfriend. Yeah, this is the stuff that he's posting. Yeah, that's my question. Hang on. So you say UK girlies are sticking up for him. Yeah, it's insane to me. I'm like, what are we sticking up for? I'm confused. Did you? Honestly, we have got to stop being this naive. We have got to stop being this naive. Toxic has a sub story and a half for days. If you were going to fall for the sub story, you were never going to see that person for who they are. They're great at spinning narratives and telling their sub story and making you feel bad for them. You got to ask questions like, why are you saying this now in 2026 when nobody cares and nobody asked? If you feel so bad and it wasn't also, and you don't want all the attention and don't want everybody hating you, why are you here? Because everybody forgot about you. And here he is, 2023, reminding people about him. I want to know where those kids by Sarah are. Exactly. Where are they? Now, I couldn't get a definitive because I'm not going to speculate. ChatGPT said that they're not with him. Although ChatGPT says a lot of things, so you can't really rely on that. I don't know whether they're with him or not. He didn't speak about them in the interview, as far as I can remember. I've seen it 3 times, but I might have missed it. Here's what was said on, and if they're not with him, why are they not with him? Is another question. Here's what was said by one of the things under the lots of comments about he came across as a genuine nice lad. I wish him well. This was said over and over and over again on social media, on videos and comment section and everything. They all come across as really nice guys. That's how they get you in. No, especially the really bad ones, the covert ones. They come across as the greatest guys ever. That's how they get you. I'm not understanding what you guys are not understanding, right? We need to put the two together and critically think about this. Anyway, next one. Someone with critical thinking sets me up to start investigating when she says, or he, I don't know who, did they talk about him filing a £1 million lawsuit against her parents in 2019, trying to get money for her from her estate? That is what tipped me off, because I went through the comments. I was like, is that true? It is indeed true. So whilst he's doing all of this posting, thank you to my fans, and back to Blake, in 2023, in 2019, he tried to go for her money to the parents. In 2019, how many years after her death? He tried to go back. How many? 2011, she passed away. He then went back to the parents and tried to get money out of them because apparently he was owed money because he was married to her and looked after her over that time. Like, no, you put her on drugs, my friends. What is not clicking? That he should be on a charge for what he did to Amy. Now, was he compos mentis? Did he have a disease? Yeah. But does he have a disease now? No. So where was this reflection in his interview? So don't get me wrong. This isn't me demonizing him at the time, although the behavior that he had at the time was very, very toxic, which is why you need to stay away from these people, right? But even in that, now, in this interview, here in 2023, it's not given remorseful. It's given, I want to cash in on Amy's fame. Even when he's talking in the interview about Amy and her fame and stuff like that, he lights up when people talk about how much Amy loved him and how much Amy revered him and how much Amy did for him. He lights up. This, for me, is a problem. Why are you lighting up like that, sir? Especially in the way that you treated her. So, guys, you let me know your thoughts in the comment section, but I just think disgusting. Disgusting. To me, it was a disgusting interview that turned my stomach inside out watching. The first time I watched it. The second time and the third time I watched it to study it. So my first reaction, I like to go with my first impulses or my first impressions about a situation. My first gut feelings usually tend to be right when I see something or when I hear something or when I watch something. But I sometimes have to go dig in to find out the reasons why my gut feeling is saying what it's saying. And I go dig in, and here we are. He was responsible. Not wholly responsible. I'm not going to say he was wholly responsible for her death, because no, she had the addiction. She had the past history with her own family, her own trauma, her own dysregulated nervous system, self-medicating, all of that stuff, plus the fame. Cannot have been a good combination. Cannot have been a good combination. But you know what also definitely was not a good combination? Having the guy that you have been dedicated to for the last however long, married to, has spent majority of your money on, having a baby with somebody else. That did not help either. And the fact that he doesn't even mention it in this interview, which was so candid and so genuine, now you lost me right there. Anyway, guys, our Warrior Living community, come join us today. You get daily affirmations, practical, therapeutic, trauma-informed challenges, tips to help you avoid or remain empowered whilst navigating toxic dynamics, regular live lessons, and social activities, and so much more. Our latest lesson that's just come up is around the reasons why women cannot do casual sex like men and how it keeps us vulnerable to toxic, narcissistic, and abusive situations. I break it down, ladies. These are the types of things, and then also how to date in a safer way that protects us from the vulnerabilities that are as such, right? And how to keep those boundaries in those situations. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. That's just the one that's just come up now. Next month, we'll have another one. I think it's called how to become love bomb proof. This is why I teach all of these things. It's in the community, and you can join today for £5.99 per month. Link is in the description box. Come join us, right? Okay, he's clout chasing. Nobody cares. Exactly, he is clout chasing. He is clout chasing. I have a very, 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 very long conclusion. So based on what I can see, I think Blake was a big part of why Amy passed away. If not the incident at hand, an accumulation of the years of the things that had happened in that relationship that we don't have any evidence of, but I have an inkling that she was very much subjected to a lot of emotional and psychological stuff at the hands of that guy. This is my opinion. This is my inkling on that situation. Do I have any evidence? No, because they don't talk about it to that degree. But I believe so, based on what I've seen, based on the way that he speaks about this, his situation right now in his current healthy state, based on the emissions, based on the things that he did, even though it was in his active addiction. You're not in active addiction now, sir, apparently. Okay, so what is this BS that we're hearing that you've managed to convince everybody of? I think Blake is highly narcissistic. Again, I believe that she suffered great deal of emotional abuse at the hands of him. Now, at that time, it wasn't emotional and psychological stuff wasn't as well talked about. I haven't got the words, but wasn't as discussed or widespread or all of that as it is today. Or was it 2011? No, you're not getting all of that in 2011. And even before that, 2009, 2000, definitely not 2007. They wouldn't have been talking about emotional and psychological stuff the way that they are now. I can bet, put me as a fly on the wall, I can bet you that she had been subjected to a hell of a lot of stuff from that guy. Hell of a lot of stuff. I think this interview was his attempt at using her name to make himself relevant. To do what? To do absolutely nothing with, apart from just get some attention, because that's what highly narcissistic people need, right? I also think that the host of the podcast is problematic. He is, because why are you not checking this information? Why are you not checking him? Why are you not asking him questions about this endless love? Like, why are you not prodding? Why are you not? Because here's the thing. If you let it slide, people are going to listen to that podcast and go, yeah, that's real love, like a lot of people did. A lot of people came away from that podcast and was like, oh, real love. I don't want you romanticizing that. I don't. Because if you romanticize that, you're going to go looking for that. And when you go looking for that, you're going to find this kind of toxic dynamic again and again and again and again, because what that is not healthy. What that is toxic. What that is going to end up with you having a very dysregulated nervous system of your own to manage. That is my problem with it. Not with the guy in particular, Paul, whatever his name is. I don't care about the guy and his opinion. I don't care if his opinion differs from my opinion. I don't care about that. But what I care about is the message that is being spread about love. I need you to check that at the gate, because now you've just made how many more people, more women vulnerable to this toxic BS. And now these women are getting out on TikTok and being like, oh, you really loved her. Oh, there is such a thing as someone being addicted and introducing you to drugs and then still loving you. No, there isn't. Snap out of it. Snap out of it. It's not the love that anybody wants. Because didn't he leave her and have a baby with 2 babies with somebody else? And then she passes away. We don't know how she passed away. We don't know the head games that he was playing with her when she passed away. We don't know any of that. We just know that she passed away as a result of her addiction. Now, we've got 2 people connected to him that have died as a result of addiction. Now, we find out the backstory about Amy, but we don't know the backstory about that one. We don't know what he was saying to her. You've clocked his tea. No, he never does. He never calls people out on their BS. And that's again, if you want to do that, I'll just stop watching you, because I don't want to consume my head with that rubbish. If you want to not call people out on that, I'll just stop watching you. But to spread a narrative like that is dangerous for women older, women in between, women trying to find a middle ground, women who have grown up in trauma. This is dangerous messages for them to receive. I don't want us receiving these kind of messages. This is why I did this live. This is why I wanted to break it down. Now, sorry about getting the timing wrong in regards to when she was pregnant and stuff like that, but times don't really matter. You get the general gist of the situation. He was triangulating. That whole baby situation was going on. And Amy was the one that had to shut that down. He says himself, he was not going to stop, basically. The tyranny was going to continue had she let it continue, which is why I'm always saying you gotta be the one to shut it down. Don't take his lead, but because he wants to be here, because he wants to be there. He wants to be with me. He chose to be with me because you have something for him in that situation. Just because someone wants to be with you doesn't mean they value you, doesn't mean they deserve to be there. Because why is he on the phone to his ex-wife in the middle of the night when you're pregnant with his child? But he chooses me. No, he doesn't. He doesn't choose any of you, quite frankly. He chooses to play games, is what he's choosing. Ladies, we've got to get that strict. We've got to get that strict about it. He's choosing to play games is what he's choosing. He's chosen none of you. He's chosen to run rings around both of you and torture both of you. He's chosen to triangulate. That's what he's chosen to do. Anyway, I'm going to stop ranting. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell so you get a notification every time I go live, which is every Sunday. I did start releasing some videos and I just don't have time to edit it at the moment. Apologies. The new video, which is going to be a really old video by the time I break it down and deliver it to you guys. Apologies in advance. The lives will continue. There'll be another one next week that I'll probably announce on Thursday. I have a load of things I want to talk about. It's just about organizing it. I want to talk about the Kardashians more. I want to be talking about Sandra Bullock. I want to break down a load of stuff that is not readily spoken about in regards to toxic dynamics, in regards to the true empowerment that we need to have, like she did. Amy did stand up for herself in the end. She stood on business, but she didn't have the support at which to bear the pain of exiting that situation, because there is a lot of pain involved when you stop a toxic cycle. A lot of people think, oh, you're out of the situation, it'll be better. No, it gets worse before it gets better. And that's where I think that she didn't have the support that she needed in order to bridge that gap, because based on the things that she'd been through in that relationship, there was a whole lot of support that she would be needing. Great live, clocked it. You're helping the girls see through the nonsense. I hope so. This is the intention of this entire channel, helping us to see through the nonsense, to critically think about things, because they are tricky out in these streets. He's got everyone thinking he's a nice guy, whilst lying through his teeth about the situation. He got everybody thinking he's genuine, so candid. You can feel the emotion. Please, it's not his fault. It is partially his fault. The addiction was absolutely his fault in regards to the rug addiction, and her passing was partially his fault. Partially. For different reasons. But it was. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you, Aunt Boo in VA, for sticking with me and having this conversation. And I hope to see you again. Until the next time, live boldly, live empowered, live from the inside out. Bye for now.
Trauma recovery, toxic recovery, trauma recovery, toxic recovery.